It was a game of near misses for the Beavs, whose quest for their first Pac-12 win of the season came down to the final possession. But it was also a glimpse into the team's possible future as Nick Mitchell and Ryan Nall carried the load for OSU. We'll talk with Coach Anderson about the close game that was in Corvallis and the tough challenge his team faces in the Beehive State. Beavers Inside the Huddle starts right now. A new week and a new opportunity for the Oregon State Beavers. Welcome into the Flat Tail Brewing Studios along with legendary Beav Steve Priest. I'm Dusty Hara. Oregon State heading down to Utah for the Utes, who are coming off their first loss of the year. But Steve, it was another loss for the Beavs against Colorado at Research Stadium. Homecoming night didn't finish out the way Beavs fans had it dreamed up.
No, but, it started out better than it had in weeks. The Beavers had gone 4 straight games of first drive, a touchdown against the Beavs. They stopped it with a field goal this week, and then the Beavers got the ball, and where did the surprises start right then, folks? We saw people we hadn't seen in different positions, and we're going to take a look at that on the Mondo Pad here.
Well, let's head over to the InFocus Mondo Pad, because it is collaboration that works. That first drive of the game that you were talking about, Steve, and it did start out with a little bit of trickery.
Well, you see this guy come in, and that happens to be number 4, Seth Collins, the normal starting quarterback. This is Nick Mitchell, who had just moved up from 3rd team to 2nd a week ago, and Nick is the starting quarterback, number 14. So a lot of surprises going on right now, and we'll take a look at this. This is one of the Beavers' favorite plays, if that was Storm Woods or Ryan Nall or something, but it turns out it's Seth Collins. Let's take a look at what he does. Just a simple draw, or a simple run, with the zone blocking. He gets just 4 or 5 yards. Now, second play. That is number 4. Normal setup there, and this is just a straight run with, again, the zone blocking, good blocking downfield here. It turns out to be a good play that nets the Beavers just the way they want to start. Take a look. Look at the blocks on the outside. Look at him follow his blocking and break the outside with a great speed. 27 yards, and the Beavers are rock and rolling. They run a couple more plays, and then they go back to the initial play that began. Seth had been out here. He comes to here. Mitchell again. Take a look here. We're going to get the same kind of sweep that the game started with, but look how it finishes. Nick Mitchell down the sideline. A nice little halfback pass from the quarterback. Sets up the Beavers on first down on 3-yard line. Then they bring Storm Woods in. It looks like Storm scores right there, but they do not give it to him.
I still think he got in.
I do too. But they brought in Ryan Nall after that, and the Beavers get the touchdown. They're up 7-3, and it's the best start the Beavs have had in 4 weeks.
Now, that was kind of the taste that Beavs wanted to have. The opening drive, you go down, you march in, you score a touchdown. After Colorado goes on their opening drive, as you mentioned, 3 points on the board is something that we hadn't seen in a long time after the opposition's first drive of the game.
Well, it was true, and the Beavs were really starting to play well. The defense looked like they were in tune, doing the right kinds of things. So I was excited, and the Beavers played a real tough game for the next part of the half, probably, until a few things started to go wrong.
Well, yeah, we saw that from that point, it just became that stalemate where both teams were just kind of locked in back and forth. A pretty low-scoring affair of what we're used to over the course of not just Oregon State season, but Pac-12 play in general. This is a high-scoring league, and then we head into the 4th quarter when things really started heating up for both teams, and the offenses both started clicking again.
Well, yes, and it's 10-10. Just at the start of the 4th quarter, you see right here, it is just starting. The Beavs are going to send pressure here from the corner spot. Coach has got his 3-man front. Actually, it's a 4 right there. And the Beavers are just going to put pressure on quickly. This is all man-to-man across here. Watch what happens. And this is Jonathan Willis, a young guy who's worked his way into a lot more playing time. He's doing a good job, and he has a chance to maybe break this game open. Take a look. Jonathan's back. He comes up. Great hit by the corner and a drop ball. Immediately after that, the Colorado team brings it down the field, and quarterback Seth Lufau runs it. Good open block right there. Touchdown. It was a 14-point swing, and that was the football game, folks. That was the winning drive, winning touchdown, and it could have gone the other way. Different ball game.
There's a lot of missed opportunities for Oregon State after that one drive, though, to start the 4th quarter. And really, that was basically the story of the game. When you take a look in the 3rd quarter there, we had a missed field goal, something that we haven't seen from Oregon State. Special teams in the kicking game has been solid since that Michigan game.
Absolutely. You see the drop passes. Now, you see the end interception that we're watching right there, but more than that, there were 3 or 4 drop balls in the third quarter, as you mentioned, Dusty, that could have changed the game around. And the Beavers just didn't take advantage in the passing game, in the running game. They need to put points on the board, and certainly this is a very good kicker, and he didn't miss many field goals.
You know, one other thing that we saw in that game that we haven't seen a lot of, but it seems to be the last couple of weeks, not just in college, but the NFL as well, offensive pass interference.
Yeah.
I mean, we're seeing a lot of it lately. What did you think about some of the way that some of those calls went? Because it's a call you don't see very often in football.
No, and I think 2 of them were on the same Beaver player, and it looked like it could have gone either way. And normally the offensive guy gets that call. Wasn't the truth this game with Guyton. He had 2 of them called on him, and I thought both of them could have gone either way. But that's the way things are breaking for the Beavs right now, and they just need to suffer through this and turn it around.
You know, it's also a sign of a young team.
Yes.
And we've said that time and time again. But drop passes in critical times, I mean, we saw them with guys that were not.
Yeah.
The guys like, Victor Bolden and, guys that have been reliable. We got a lot more coming up on Beavers Inside the Huddle. Gary Anderson joins us next to preview Utah. Welcome back into Beavers Inside the Huddle, along with legendary Beav Steve Priest. I'm Dusty Hara. Joining us now down live in Corvallis is the head coach of the Oregon State Beavers, Gary Anderson. Coach Anderson, thanks for taking a few minutes for us.
Thanks, guys. Good to be with you as always.
Hey, where we start with last week's game against Colorado, you had Ryan Nall coming in the backfield, a local guy out of Central Catholic. Really, for the first time we've seen getting a brunt of the carries for your Beavs. What kind of dynamic does that young man bring to your backfield? He is the ultimate change of pace with his big frame.
Yeah, he is. You know, he's a very big back. He runs with a physical nature. He's gotten much better as far as getting his eyes over his toes and running with some physicality. The one run that comes to mind where he was hitting the backfield and bounced off and went for whatever that was, 15, 18 yards on that run. That was impressive. You know, he's contagious as a youthful player. He's a freshman. He's delivering in games and special moments. I think he's contagious, just like many of the youthful kids on this team are contagious to our team as a whole, and it needs to continue to grow in that way. But it's fun to see a young man, right from Central Catholic get in here and get his opportunity early. For Oregon guys to be part of this program, it's important to us as a coaching staff, and that's not lip service. That is factual, and we're excited for every kid that has success. But it's exciting when you have a kid that is in his hometown to be able to have that success, especially this early in his career. But the most important part of that is what I said earlier, is the youthfulness that Ryan brings, the toughness, the physicality. He could start at 4 or 5 different positions on this team, and hopefully that's not the case here as we move through time, but that is the facts right now, just because he's so tough and he's a workaholic.
Well, you talk about youthfulness. You warned us last week, but you also surprised us with the way you started the game and the amount of time on the quarterback splits. Will you talk about going forward, how these 2 quarterbacks fit in? They gained 250 yards between them last week. Are you going to roll that way with whatever seems right at the time and according to the defense you're playing? How are you going to divide it up?
Well, I think you're right, Steve. This week it'll depend with who we're playing. When you're playing Utah, you obviously are playing against a very talented defense with a very, very talented front 7. So you have to be able to pick your spots and understand how you're going to be able to have success or try to have success. The 2 quarterback system for us right now, we believe, just gives us the best opportunity to be able to compete. Is it something that we're, enamored with, that we want to be like this all the time? No, I don't think we're saying that, but we believe it gives us the best chance to be able to win. And when I say that, simple terms, it means this: Nick brings a certain amount of talent level, or wherever he is in his process as far as throwing the ball, doing what he's doing. Seth has his abilities within throwing the ball, obviously with his running. Between the 2, it's a bigger offense to prepare for than it is if you just have one of them, and that has a lot to do with it. The more that we can force people to prepare, to get ready for, it'll give us an advantage, because right now for us to line up and say we're just going to run this and this and this against you, and that's our base offense, go ahead and stop it, it hasn't been successful. We have to continually try to find ways to move the football and score points. And I don't want to turn into a gimmick offense. That's the last thing I want to do. We're still searching to find our identity, what we can do consistently, but it is what it is. So we're still looking for that secret recipe.
You know, one of the tough things when trying to find that identity is to battle through the injuries, and the amount of injuries that are starting to pile up now down in Corvallis for you guys. One of significance that happened last week, I think that had, you know, casual and hardcore Beaver fan alike, was Treston Decoud, and when he went down and was carted off the field. Can you give us an update to his status? I know after the game you said he was in the locker room with the guys, got discharged, but what's his status as of Thursday night?
Well, we talked back and forth, and he's definitely moving in the right direction. His words from me as coach, I'm going to get back as fast as I can, and there is no real time frame on when he's going to get back. He's in a good spot. He's attending school. I think there's a lot to go through when you go through that situation. I've only had 2 young men in my career that have had that happen to them, and Treston's one. Chucky Keaton was the other. When Chucky would have happened to Chucky, he never really came back for that whole season and wasn't ready to come back for the rest of the season. It wasn't just because, you know, he had a little bit of a head situation. It was more he had another injury that came with it. But in this case, for Treston to be able to get back, he has to get back physically, yes, but he also has to get back mentally. And I will be very, very careful with him as we continue to move forward. I'm sure he's going to tell me he's fine, and when I feel he's fine, and he feels he's fine, Doc feels he's fine, Rico feels he's fine, then we'll give him that opportunity to go out and compete. But when that happens, it's a traumatic experience, no matter how we want to look at it. And he'll be back soon. He's got a good attitude. He's got a big smile on his face like he always had. So we're all looking forward to getting back on the field. But those are very, very stressful times. His
injury is subjective as to when you come back. But you lost another big one this time when Sean Harlow. He goes down, ankle, out for the season. You're bringing in another young person to play there, and it seems like you have to bring in new people almost weekly.
Yeah, there's a lot of that, and Steve, it'll pay huge dividends down the road with all these youthful kids that are getting in there. That's horrible for Harlow. You know, Sean is a catalyst of that offensive line. You know, sometimes you can look at an injury and say it's the worst thing in the world, or you can look at an injury and say, hey, it's an opportunity for me to understand how precious this game is. That is a little bit of my challenge to Sean right now, to let him understand that he needs to now prepare for his senior year to go be great, not be a good player, be a great player, and be in charge of his team and make sure this team is growing. If he wants to have success his senior year and do some special things, then he needs to start that today, even before he gets his leg fixed. It's an unfortunate accident or injury that took place for him. You hate to see that, but it is part of the game sometimes. He'll handle it well, and we'll get him fixed up and move forward. But his best day should be ahead of him. We'll bring in some young guys, and it's another opportunity to get reps, to get better, and I expect the young man that's coming in there to play at a very high level, whether that's Cammy moves to guard and we take Isaac and move him to tackle, or Will comes in at tackle. We'll have all those combinations and ready to go. We'll see what happens.
Real quick, Larry Scott, is he back and close to playable? You've lost so many people in that secondary.
No, both starting corners are out, and they won't be with us for, you know, what would be right now an extended period of time, which is, as you know, tough to deal with. When you lose that and you lose your left side of your offensive line, those are some problems. But hey, we are where we are, so let's go fight it out. We're excited to go play, and we expect to win.
Still a lot more to get to with Coach Anderson down in Corvallis, including our keys to the game and the big challenge with the Utah Utes. Coach Anderson continues. This is Beavers Inside the Huddle. Welcome back into Beavers Inside the Huddle. Dusty Harris, Steve Priest, and joining us down in Corvallis is the head coach, Gary Anderson. Coach Anderson, you guys head down to your old stomping grounds, Beehive State, Utah, and the Utes. This is a good football team, just coming off their first loss of the year. Really, when you go back and you're looking at that USC tape, what pops out to you of what USC did to kind of exploit the weaknesses of the Utes?
Well, USC is unbelievably talented, which we all knew going into this year. There's not a weakness on that football team. They're very good all over the place. So I think SC executed their game plan. They made some big plays when they had to. The freshman linebacker, number 35, again, I apologize for not knowing that young man's name. I'm sure I will as I go through the years watching him play. Played an unbelievable game, snap in and snap out, and You know, SC just played at a high level and made plays when they had to be able to make plays, and you know, Utah had their problems. But you know, Utah's a great team. You have to be able to deal with those front guys on defense, the front guys on offense, a great running back. They have the four things. Utah, in my opinion, has the four things that you need to be able to play very well in this conference and have an opportunity to win a championship. And I've kind of just come to terms with, in the recruiting with our coaches, and telling this is what I believe. And I'll stand true to this for a long time. Number one, you have to have a quarterback that's a good quarterback, hopefully great, but at least good. If he's not, you have no chance. You have to have at least one great running back. If you don't have at least one great one, you better have two really good ones with you, or you're going to have major problems. You have to have four guys that can rush the passer and get to the passer with four, and you have to have corners that can play man-to-man coverage. If you can do that, I think you have a chance to move yourself along. And you look at the teams that are having success right now in this league, they have all four of those components, and some of them have a couple other components that are pretty good also. So as we move forward, that will be our model, and we'll continue to look at it as we move through our recruiting process.
Coach, that's interesting to me. You mentioned four defensive linemen to rush the passer, and you talked about a good running back and a good quarterback. They've got two quarterbacks that are pretty darn good, a running back who's great. They've got 8 defensive linemen playing full speed, and they don't seem to have a weakness. I'm really surprised at how you attack them, and then you throw on top of it that one of the best punters and maybe as good a kicker as there is in the country as well. It's a full, complete team.
They are, and their specialists are very good. And you know, this team for Utah has been a work in progress. You know, I had the opportunity to go through my time at Utah State and go through and build a program. Kyle did much the same thing, in my opinion, moving himself from the Mountain West into the Pac-12. And now, again, this is just my opinion. Some may disagree, but I think that's exactly where we are. We are transforming ourselves from what I still believed was, you know, into the Pac-10. And when I say that, I don't mean that in any way of disrespect. I mean that we have a lot of things that we're getting, that we're moving forward, from new facilities to the direction of the administration to the coaches that I was allowed to be able to bring in here. I know there was good coaches in the past, but again, all I can do is speak about what I know and what I believe. And the transformation to the Pac-12 for Utah is a lot of the things that we're going through and the things that we're experiencing right now. And it was fun to watch Kyle build it and get it to this point and now have success. He took a lot of grief, and there was some bad days out there as he continued to stick to his guns and his plan and his belief, and he's definitely moved forward, and now he's in a good spot. And I look forward to continually building ourselves and moving ourselves forward into that transformation into the elite level in the conference. That's all words, that's all talk at this point, but you have to have a plan if you're going to put a plan in place.
You know, Coach, we threw up the graphic there of all the coaches, that the familiarity with the Utah program and the staff. As you're game planning for this, you know, you have that familiarity. Does that kind of help you guys along as you're taking a look at Utah film going, well, we know exactly what that coverage is called. We know exactly what this guy does.
You know, there is definitely some of that out there. You can send yourself out there on a witch hunt too if you're not careful. So you got to be careful of what you don't want to chase things, but you also want to put yourself in a position to, if you can gain an advantage, let's gain an advantage. And I'm sure both staffs are definitely doing that. But there's a lot of familiarity between the two staffs, you know, which is fun. It's part of the deal during this week, and we know we're playing a very good team. The key is again, for us to prepare and get ourselves in a moment to make plays when we need to. We do that, we're going to have a shot at winning every game that we play. I really believe that. But we have to understand what our deficiencies are. We have to understand what our positives are and what their deficiencies are and what their positives are. And then you need to take advantage of those opportunities when opportunity presents itself. And if you look where we've been successful and where we haven't been, other teams have done a better job at just that, taking advantage of our deficiencies. And we don't do a good enough job of taking advantage of their deficiencies, however that may be, whether that's a physical nature, it's a mistake that we make, it's self-inflicted wounds, it goes on and on. But Utah doesn't do much of that now because they're a very experienced team, so you're going to have to beat them at their game.
Coach Anderson, Rice-Eccles Stadium is the site. Your Beavs heading down to take on Utah. Good luck this weekend.
I appreciate it. We'll go in there expecting to win as always. Go Beavs.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, we got a lot to get to still on the show. Our keys to the game. Stick with us. Beavers Inside the Huddle continues. Right now, it's time to unveil our keys to the game, brought to you by your Northwest Honda dealers, where I'm going to start. Establish the identity early. Coach Anderson said it. Each quarterback needs to find their identity. Feed Null. He needs to get the ball early and often, and then score on special teams. I'm not talking about kickers either. I'm talking about a return to the house.
I like your number 2, the Wrecking Null. That's one of the great names I've heard, the Wrecking Null. I believe on defense, the Beavers this week need to stop that particular number 23. Devontae Booker is a real special player. Make the quarterback win it for Utah. Make Travis Wilson do something special that USC did, 4 picks. Offensively, mixed formations, mixed personnel groups. Quarterback, you already talked about, no turnovers. And on special teams, they're a great special teams team. Stop on punt coverage, score points, or at least come out even.
Okay. That's you and I thinking alike. Score points. Yep. Not meaning kickers either. All right. Oregon State heading down to Utah for the Utes. Next week, we'll recap it with Gary Anderson. Thursday, 8 p.m. right here on Comcast Sportsnet.